Greetings from the Caribbean Climate Network 350.org. You have arrived at the Caribbean Climate Network Climate Chats, and we're here talking about climate change in our region. It's the change in climate due to fossil fuel emissions. It's real and it's affecting our ocean, air, land, and even our culture. I'm Katrina Karen Roberts.
I'm Natalia Jackson.
And today we are here to talk about climate and infrastructure. So we're talking about sea level rise and coastal communities and how to rebuild after hurricanes and, the extreme weather that we have in here in this region. And one thing I find so interesting about the Caribbean on the whole is how we are so uniquely different, but yet we all have so many similarities as well, and that we could learn from each other and of course support each other during this time of the climate crisis and oncoming disasters like hurricanes and stuff like that. Now we also talk about the slow onset disaster of sea level rise. So I know you were talking about Guyana and your experience with Georgetown, so if you want to share with us.
Yeah, so most of Georgetown sits at or below sea level, and the Dutch actually engineered the seawall, which is the structure that we have now, where it is a lot of times people see people playing cricket or like having these bouncy castles and kids running. That's like a Lyman spot. But at one point in time, all the land before that seawall was Amerindian villages and communities, and a lot of people who live in Guyana now don't actually even know the names of those lands, because I spoke to my dad a little while and he was born there and raised there, and I was telling him about how far back or how much land the sea actually reclaimed off of Georgetown, and he had no clue. And I mean, he was there in the 70s and the 80s. So the Georgetown is so powerful example of climate change impacting the actual city because of these lands being reclaimed. Because every time we talk about climate change, we don't actually think about how much of our infrastructure it shapes, because a lot of times we think about engineering, we think about the roads, but we don't prioritize the development of the people that actually live there.
Yeah, exactly.
So like a lot of these areas before, as I said before, were indigenous communities, so they would have lived there, traveled, fished and stewarded, and now we have zero idea or a very little idea about the history of what those people had, and like, because it's gone, like fully gone. And when it is we see the sea level rising and these rainfalls become so much more intense, our infrastructure is struggling, and it's been very challenging, because little by little every year you lose a little bit more. Somebody loses the land that they would have grown on and lived on for years, and we don't see the value of that because we don't think about it on an individual level at all.
That's crazy. That is crazy. And that's the thing. So like within the generations, you could see people forgetting that things like that, existed, because that's what's happening in Cedros and Icacos in Trinidad as well. I went there between like a 3-month period, and like feet of roadway is breaking off, going into the ocean. We had losses of people's homes falling into the ocean not too long ago as well. And one of the guys, and this is to tell you how fast this moved, right? He's probably in his 60s, and he's telling me we're standing on the coastline and we're looking out at the water, and he was pointing at like an acre or two away, saying, "Yeah, that is my house." And you're seeing like a little rock in the water. And it's like, this is amazing that this is happening in real time. And what happens when the family's house starts falling into the ocean? It's like, does the government do anything? Is there any recourse? Is it that they just have to pick up what they can and move? So it's really scary that this slow onset is actually still quick and within our lifetimes in a lot of cases. And like infrastructure, so we're looking at transportation, we're looking at housing, we're looking at healthcare, we're looking at educational institutions and stuff like that just disappearing into the ocean in some cases, and how do we create that resilience? How do we protect our infrastructure and our investment in infrastructure? And not just solid infrastructure, but like mental infrastructure too, or like indigenous infrastructure, like you were saying. villages disappearing and stuff like that, and people have no memory of it. And yes, we know that nature has its ebbs and flows, but I feel like that hurts me that we're losing things in real time like that due to climate change.
Yeah, and a lot of time when we talk about climate resilience with regards to these things, we talk about protecting assets and very little about communities and the cultures and histories of these people that these things would affect. Because now, especially with regards to Guyana becoming a bigger city with regards to the oil exploration, you're seeing a lot of these mega mansions and these plazas going up along these same very coastlines. If they were to have this loss, it would be catastrophic for them economically. But yet we don't think about the people who are losing. And I mean, it's not little, it's big for them because that's their homes. Those are the places that they would have learned to cook certain things. And we're losing the communities, the cultures, and the histories, and we're not highlighting how big of a loss that is.
Exactly, yeah. I feel like if I like to say that Trinidad experienced its oil boom. And I think like we didn't learn from other countries in that we did not prepare for this climate crisis where we had the income and the resources to do so. So I hope Guyana would have like learned from Trinidad's mistakes in that, you use the funds to become resilient to the climate crisis instead of using it in, I wouldn't say, okay, the word I want to use is frivolous, but I know that, you have cultural impacts and things that you need to invest in. So like your stadiums and your infrastructure, your government and stuff like that, that's all great, right? But to put bluntly, to put your money into things that are not going to be used by the general public or are, barricaded from use, and using all of that money for that purpose, I feel like if that is not the way it's supposed to be used, and especially if it's coming from oil and gas, because oil and gas is so extractive, it is so destructive to nature, we have to find that balance within that give and take, If it is that you're taking so much, you're getting so much funds from taking this oil and gas and putting emissions into the atmosphere, what are we getting out of it as a community and as a long-term society? That's my thought process.
Definitely. And I feel like a lot of it also stems from being in the Caribbean. When we think about development, when it is we have these oil and gas things, we're thinking about, for some reason, condos and big pools and these like very modern ideas of what development is supposed to be. These skyscrapers and highways and luxury developments. But when it is we think about what we naturally have, why can't we consider that development? I mean, the ability to go and pick up a mango from your neighbor tree, that is a luxury to me. And I feel like that is something that a lot of people in the world don't have, that we have. We have this special Caribbean bond. Like, you know what I mean? Like the wetlands and the mangroves, those are development. Those are habitats for our island. You know what I mean?
That's the infrastructure that we should be protecting.
Correct.
Yes, the natural infrastructure. And sadly, it is all infrastructure is going to be at the mercy of climate change. Yes, we're saying that some things will become more resilient, or like ecosystems will shift, and the mangrove will move to the other area, and like the ecosystem will come back to itself and stuff like that. But I think everything has a balance and a breaking point. And so I really hope, for our Caribbean brothers and sisters other than Trinidad and Guyana, because I always say Trinidad and Guyana have that oil and gas money. We are the outliers when it comes to natural resources as well as financial resources. When we're looking at the other islands like Barbados and stuff like that, renewable energy, conserving your natural capital, your tourism, protecting your tourism resources, developing sustainable tourism products, finding other new, value in things that are intrinsically yours. And I feel like if climate change is supposed to push us to think more about what we can use with our wealth, and what we have to protect with our few resources that we have, and build better. I think that infrastructure could mean both mental infrastructure and societal infrastructure, as well as health and education, and prioritizing wellness because I think like governments and stuff sometimes they don't realize that if you have an ill population or a population that is ill handling, the pressures on it, it impacts, what they can do as a government as well and their power. So I mean the voting population, you know, we have so much that we are dependent on in this world, and climate change is taking so much of it away from us and putting us all at risk. And it's just about trying to figure out how we're going to adapt to it.
Yeah, and I feel like climate conversations are so important, especially for us in this region, because I feel like the Caribbean on the whole is such a gem of a place in terms of the in the global atmosphere realm of it. I feel like I've always loved this region like so much, and I want the best for it in any way possible. And yeah, so when it is we have these conversations and we're thinking about these climate resilient infrastructures, I want the people to be the base of it. Like when we think about these infrastructures that we want to have, that we understand that the joy of the Caribbean is in every single person that lives here. The people who call this their home. This is what we should be building for.
Perfect. And that I think is the best way for us to close off this episode. So thank you so much, Natalia.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
So that was today's episode. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned and follow 350.org's Caribbean Climate Network on social media. Bye.
Bye.